Yes, that too.
All right, we're live, guys. Welcome to Meet the HR Podcasters. We got two of them already on the.
I got an echo. Does anybody?
Hey, everybody, I'm Chris Russell from RegTech Media. With me right now are James Ellis and the. Hello, guys. Close you guys out. Sorry about that, everyone. So we're going to talk to the HR podcasters today, and just let you see them in person since they're behind the mic usually on audio. And we're going to find out what happens when you invite 12 podcasters to a webinar. So not sure what's going to happen in this, but be prepared for the unexpected. And let me try and get these guys back online, and hopefully their mics and stuff are all working. So we've got first up Derek Zeller. He's got a new podcast. I'm inviting him on screen. Derek, see if you can join. Let's get James Ellis back on. And we'll try Recruiting Animal again. And see what happens here. All right, James, can you hear me?
I sure can. Me.
I can. All right. How you doing, Animal? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Sounds good. Derek, I'm not sure where you are. I invited you on screen, so look for the prompt. And let's see here. So let's kick things off. James, tell us about your show. And what is it?
So I'm James Ellis. I run the Talent Cast, the most creatively named podcast out there.
Let's do this one at a time. All right, go ahead.
I'm happy to blame Recruiting Animal. I have no problems with that whatsoever. So I run the Talent Cast. I've been doing it for almost, I guess, about 2 years now. We're about to hit episode 100, which is terrifying that for some reason no one has stopped me or said enough is enough. I started this podcast 2 years ago as an interview podcast, kind of like everybody else's podcast, and I realized I'm a bad interviewer. I'm not good at this. And I figured, well, why don't I just say what I learned and talk about this thing I think, or just process a thing. And so every week I just kind of take this bad boy right here, the $50 microphone, that's my full investment. And I just start with an idea. And usually it's an idea that I came up with from another podcast or from something happened at work or something I'm kind of wrestling with. And I hit record and I start talking. And then usually about 15, 20, 30 minutes later, I've figured it out because it's forced me to just focus on the thing. I think the trick for most of us is that we've got 17 emails coming and we got Slack and we got the text and we've got all this stuff going on. We're all distracted. And for 20 minutes, I'm just locked in on this thing. Now, sometimes it's boring. Simple as that. Sometimes I think something interesting happens and people get to learn stuff. And I think over time, I've gotten better at kind of figure out what the heck I want to say. And so over time, I've gotten really good response from people. For some reason, some people seem to think I'm their running buddy. They take me running, which I think is a horrible idea. But, they like that thing. It's just a conversation or it's just a monologue of here's an idea. Let's wrestle with it and come up with it. So that's kind of what I do. And, it's been a lot of response. I'm stunned that people still listen to it. Uh-oh, Derek showed up.
There he is.
It's a party. It's a party.
Oh, it's going.
All right, Animal, we'll get you back on in a second. So, sorry, James.
Yeah. No, not at all. So that's kind of what I do. And so I focus a lot on employer brand type stuff. And what's interesting is employer brand keeps getting bigger and bigger as it's starting to take over and say, no, it's also about employee experience. It's also about candidate experience. It's also about all these things and the barriers and the borders of this stuff get fuzzier and fuzzier it just gives me leeway to talk about whatever the heck I want to talk about.
Yours is a solo show too. One of the few podcasts that's just you talking. Why'd you decide to do it that way?
The real answer is, yeah, that's also, very much true. And Audra knows from whence she speaks. It's one of those few times that I don't get interrupted. Honestly, it's 20, 30 minutes where no one interrupts me and no one's allowed to interrupt me. Thank you, Chad. Yeah, that's really kind of where it is. And honestly, I think there are plenty of other people who do good interviews and they do good book reviews and they do kind of back and forths. And I like participating in their shows for that stuff. And I think I've actually been on a lot of people's podcasts who've been on this today. But yeah, mine's it's just the James Show, for better or for worse. You kind of have to like this or this part, to kind of get into it. And if you do, you do. And if you don't, I get it.
All right. And last question before we get to Derek. What shows do you listen to? Other shows?
So I like recruiting, but I like a lot of stuff outside of recruiting, and I'm sure other people are going to mention recruiting podcasts. But I like, I think Seth Godin has evolved his podcast into something that actually works. It's it's interesting. It's finding new space. The Exponent, which just canceled like 2 months ago, which is I'm still pouring a glass of coffee on the water for it in homage of. I think it's an amazing strategy podcast. Everybody Hates Marketers is a weird podcast, but man, they do good interviews. It's
Everybody Hates Marketers.
Everybody Hates Marketers is a French dude living in Dublin, which, enjoy that accent. And then he interviews some insanely smart people. So Cindy Gallup, Seth Godin, just amazingly amazing. Rand Fishkin, just a great podcast.
Nice. Feel free to throw a link in the show notes there. Tell people where to go. And Derek Zeller, let's bring him on as well. Derek, welcome. And you got a new show out. You're one of the newest podcasters in HR. So tell us what your show is all about.
Yeah, we're brand spanking new. In fact, I think we just taped our 8th or 9th episode earlier today with Jeff Newman. It's sort of like Zach Galifianakis in Between Two Ferns. It really is. It's just about 30 minutes of people in the recruiting industry, and that means recruiters, sourcers, marketing, inbound marketing, anything that has to do with recruiting and sourcing, even HR to a certain degree. And I'm bringing people on, names that, the HR famous type roles, people, Steve Levy, for example, Dean DeCosta has already been on. But I'm also bringing on people you never even heard of, or you may not have heard of, like Evan Donaldson out of San Diego. He runs his own firm, third-party recruiting firm. And he's been a dear friend of mine. We used to work together, and he has some great things to talk about, like how he's working with hiring managers from a third-party standpoint. So it really is just kind of more, it's just to have some fun. It's pretty free-flowing. Ask a couple of general questions, and a lot of times I just want to hear what that individual has to say about the state of recruiting now and in the future. And it's been a lot of fun. Everybody that's been on the shows thus far has said they had a really great time doing it. We keep it short because people have things to do. Like listen to other podcasts.
What's your length?
What?
What's the average length?
Yeah, about 30 minutes, yeah.
Yep, that's what I go for. And what's the name of your show?
Masters of Modern Recruiting. Can be found on engagetalent.com under podcasts. Everything is taped. We don't do anything live. So it's you can download it and listen to it whenever you'd like.
Awesome. Well, appreciate the shout out there. I'll put a link there in the show notes for you. Got a favorite episode so far?
Wow. Probably the one I did with Pete Radloff. Either that or the one I did with Herv. Those are really, really good shows. So I had Amy Miller on yesterday. She's like my little sister. She just moved over to Google 6 weeks ago from Microsoft, and we worked at Microsoft together. And she's like one of my oldest friends. I just love her to death, and I just love her reality. She doesn't like to play around. That's really kind of fun. That made it good. I think all the shows are really good, to be honest with you. I think it's just I'm getting better at it now. I'm learning more. I've listened to downloads of Audra's show and Chad and Cheese and Lori Ruderman, for example, is another one that I'm starting to listen to. I'm brand new to this whole thing. So if anybody out there wants to give me some tips, I'd appreciate it.
Nice. Cool. Awesome, Derek. I want to bring Animal back on. Feel free to stay in the chat and crack wise.
Cool.
And thanks for coming on.
Bye, guys.
Okay. All right, Animal, let's get you back on, and we'll get to group 2 right after that, guys. And I got thunderstorms coming here, so bear with me. All right, Animal, I'm going to bring you back on again. Hopefully the audio issues are done. My show, by the way, is RegTech. You can find it at regtechmedia.com. I kind of talk about recruiting technology and attract talent. And we, of course, now have the recruiting animal on the line from Toronto. How'd your show go yesterday, Animal? Oh man, your audio is. Are you using a Bluetooth? Well, we tried. I'm going to close Animal out there. Sorry about that, folks. Recruiting. I'll talk about Recruiting Animal for a second. So, it's a show I listened to for many years. One of the oldest podcasts out there. A lot of staffing and third-party recruiters come on his show and talk about how they recruit and stuff like that. It's kind of funny sometimes. There's definitely some funny moments there. If you want to check that one out, just Google Recruiting Animal or Animal Show. And Animal, feel free to put your link in the chat there. And let's move on to group 2. So I hope everyone's here. I know Audra's here. Let's get her on. And let's see here. She's invited. We've also got Chad on. Let me find Chad in the list. And George, I hope he's here. There he is. George, you're invited too. So let's get these guys in group 2. Geez, you gotta bring out the resi for this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was busy listening to Animal's wonderful speech that he put out there.
Hello, Mr. Sowash.
How are you?
The other half of Chad and Cheese.
Yeah, Joel's taking a nap. This is nap time for Joel.
I figured we didn't need 2 of you, so I think one was enough.
No, you didn't have enough time.
Nice. Well, while we wait for Audra and George, tell us what your show is and what's it about.
Yeah, good question. So podcast about 2 guys. Really the premise is 2 guys sitting in a bar, having a beer, talking about recruitment technology. In most cases, not all. I mean, we talk about pretty broad scope. We're moniker is HR's Most Dangerous Podcast. So if you don't like explicit language, don't listen. But yeah, it's truthful. It hits the point, and I don't know. People seem to like it.
You guys just what do you listen to, Chad? What else do you listen to? Other shows and stuff?
I listen to tons of different shows. So Malcolm Gladwell, his show's killer. Majority 54, The Wilderness, Caliphate, Homecoming, Sandra, Seeking Wisdom, which is really pretty awesome. How I Built This. So a lot of not recruiting podcasts for the most part. Planet Money, Slow Burn. So, I mean, I probably have like 40 podcasts that I listen to regularly that outside of recruiting.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of marketing stuff, a lot of recruiting stuff. One of my favorite ones is it's called Marketing School.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a marketer and you want to learn more about marketing, these guys have like these 7 or 8 minute long podcasts every day. It's like 1 tip per day. It's pretty cool. Learn a lot on that show overall. But there's Mr. LaRock.
Hey,
George, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I can walk around. I'm pain free. My back had a back problem. Chad,
that's important.
Yeah.
But George, tell us what your show is and where to go find it.
My show is the HR Market Watch, and you can find it in 2 places. First, on the HR Happy Hour network, which is hrhappyhour.net, and then via my website at HR Wins, where you'll find everything I do linked in one way or another at hrwins.com.
Gotcha.
Yeah. What else do I listen to? I listen to just about everybody that you've got on. I'm constantly consuming HR and recruiting content and looking for interesting takes. I certainly Chad and Cheese and helped boost them to their 2,400 last week.
Yes.
So that's a good one.
If he keeps listening to his podcast, that's going to be the number 1 podcast on the Chad and Cheese charts.
I have a bot just set up for that one, just to do that one. Yeah.
George, you're just part of the HR Happy Hour network, right?
Mine is. Yeah.
Nice. How many does that like instant downloads? That show's been around forever.
Yeah, they've got, while we were at HR Tech, I know they said they passed 1 million downloads.
Jeez.
And, over time, each of the episodes, it's like tens of thousands of downloads per episode. So, I mean, Steve went out there, he had a podcast like 8-9 years ago, and he's just built the momentum. So I'm really grateful to be included. There are 5 or 6 podcasts there. And I'm really grateful to be a part of that, because that was the scariest thing starting a podcast, right? Will anybody come and listen to this thing? So there was an audience sort of built in, and that's a great thing.
Nice. Well, feel free to put a link in the chat there, and we'll welcome Audrey to the screen. Hello, Miss Knight.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Knight. Yeah.
Great.
Tell everyone what your show is.
So my show is called The Social Recruiting Show, and I do it with my co-host, Katrina Collier. And we're actually in our 3rd year now, which is crazy, because when I go back, I actually look younger from the earlier episodes, which is good and bad, I guess. But we started talking about more social media and recruitment, but we've branched out now because it's been so long. So now we talk about anything from sourcing, lots of employer branding, like hiring manager, outreach, kind of hit everything. And ours is a little different because it's video, so I guess it's not technically a podcast, but we think it's fun to have video, because when things mess up, we have a blast. My favorite episode was when we were having a show about millennials, and we were talking about, are you losing out by thinking they're different, or are they different? And our guest, who was a millennial, actually slept in and missed the show, which was perfect.
That's awesome.
It was hilarious.
Joel,
what we did is we just had everyone on the side chat was like popping in, and we just had fun with it. It's always relaxed like that, and we just make the best of it. But I just couldn't write that if I wanted to. The fact that he wrote us like an hour later, oh my God, I totally slept in and missed it. We were like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and your show's on Crowdcast too, which is what we're doing this show on now. I think that's where I first learned about Crowdcast. So thank you for the intro. It's great platform. I love it for its versatility and stuff. But I appreciate it. So yeah, put a link there in the chat box. While I have you guys on the line here, we got a few minutes for the next group. But so a lot of big news this week. The LinkedIn ATS that was going on. What you guys think about all that news?
I'm not losing my mind over it yet. I mean, a lot of people just immediately started freaking out. I think I'm looking forward to digging in a little deeper with them in the next day or so. I'm curious, who's it built for? How closed is it? I know that LinkedIn Insights are a great perspective on like that database. So they don't really have insight into the internal hiring, data or analytics. So not that it's not valuable, but I'm just going to hesitate before I start saying that, all the other ATSs are going to, freak out and go out of business. So I'm, I don't know. I'm curious. I can see Chad smirking. I'm curious what he thinks.
I was curious.
So needless to say, we just canned this week's podcast. So tomorrow it'll be dropping. You'll get a long discussion about that. But on the other side of what George is saying, look at Google. As soon as Google came into the market, there was a huge splash and there was reaction and nothing happened. There was impact before anything happened. So it was like, hey, let's look at the data. Yeah, George, that's not how shit works, man. It all comes down to the actual perception of what the impact is going to be. And in this case, if you take a look at it, not just applicant tracking systems, but also job boards, job sites, yada, 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 they're going to have to focus on getting away from this click bullshit and apps bullshit, which has nothing to do with qualified candidates, and focus on getting further down the line. And that's the thing, is that technology's been the same for decades. Hasn't moved at all. Now Google gets into it, Microsoft and LinkedIn gets into it, Facebook does from the SMB side of the house. So yeah, I don't think anybody's really going to wait to see what the statistics are. There's going to be a reaction. The market's going to react, and they're going to react. They're going to have to react pretty quick.
I'm not saying wait to see what the stats are. I'm curious to see what they're really offering.
Yeah.
I don't see this as the end of days for commercial ATSs. They also announced a bunch of integrations into ATSs, and I think the larger enterprise you are, the less relevant their ATS might be. I don't know. I don't know enough about it yet.
I think
but
right?
Yeah, I think so. And so Google, big splash, not much happened. I mean, go way back. I don't know if you remember at the enterprise level, like when PeopleSoft rolled out its recruiting app before they acquired Taleo, everything froze. I mean, pipelines froze, and then everybody got back to business, right? So they'll get some business out of this, but I just don't. And they'll be a force. They already are a force, but I just I don't see it as just the end of days for the ATS space. It may be for a few who aren't paying attention already.
So it was competitive already. Now LinkedIn's in the market again. I mean, it's just like these ATS vendors that are not LinkedIn are going to have another vendor to deal with. It puts a lot of pressure on these guys, on their sales team and stuff. I mean, there's so much technology out there now, guys. I mean, who's using all this stuff, right? There's a new one every day. And it's like HR can't keep up with it as it is. Sometimes I wonder if we're making too much HR technology.
So many point solutions. That's the biggest issue. Now, all these point solutions are starting to converge. And that's what we're seeing with LinkedIn. That's what we're saying. I mean, so we're seeing a convergence. That's the big difference, I think.
Yeah.
One thing I would,
but Audrey, yeah.
The LinkedIn ads I find are buggy. They're way behind on Facebook ads. So I worry this ATS is going to start and be really buggy. Like LinkedIn ads, you can do video ads now because they're finally catching up. But they're super buggy. You can't even edit them after you posted them. If it's something wrong with you, you have to take it down, add a new one. So I have a feeling it's not going to start off amazing. Maybe they'll get there though.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're going to close out this session, guys. And thanks for your time today.
Good to see you.
All right.
Put your links in the show notes.
Everybody. Take care.
Get, group 3 on screen here. We're going to bring on John Thurman. Let me get him online, John. So get ready. Let me find you here. There you are. We've also got Rick Girard. Let me find Rick. There he is. And let's bring Larry on, Larry Cummings. So these are our next 3 guests. All right. They are accepted and connecting. Who's first? Hey, John.
Hello, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
You too, thanks.
And we've got, there's Rick Girard.
How's it going?
Hey, Rick. Good.
Fantastic.
We're waiting for Larry to join us. So we'll start with you, John. Tell us where you are, what your show is, and what's your day job.
Actually, I'm at my day job. It's up in Columbus, Ohio right now. I work for a utility construction firm as an HR manager. Our show is the HR Social Hour half-hour podcast. My co-host, Wendy Daly, and I talk to other practitioners, to vendors, to analysts in the market, people that we are fans of and friends of. And we really talk about 3 things. It's all about connecting, networking, and giving back. So it's an interview show. We cater. The first part of the show is focused on you as an individual. We ask questions about you and your background. The second half is what we call the question connection. So what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite book? What do you want to be? If you weren't doing HR or in your space right now, what would you be doing? So we launched back in February. We actually grew out of a Twitter chat that we've been doing for well over a year now. And we've had a blast and met a lot of great people. And Wendy has actually launched a sub show called Wonder Women, where she and another one of our friends, Ann Tompkinson, talk to women of color in the HR industry. And really excited. We just launched the 2nd episode of that earlier this week. But yeah, every Thursday morning, got a new show out, and it's been a blast.
Nice. Are you like on the SHRM podcast list or something? Are you affiliated with SHRM at all? Or
I was on the Blog Squad. We were on the Blog Squad this summer. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, feel free to throw a link to your show in the show notes there, John. And Rick, let's introduce you. We got Rick Girard here. Where are you? What's your show, and what do you do?
Yeah, hi. So my name is Rick Girard. I host a radio show and podcast called Higher Power, HIRE. It's not a religious show. And essentially what we do is we tackle specific issues that are related to recruiting and try to make an impact for entrepreneurs and business leaders to solve difficult hiring challenges.
Nice. And what's your day job, Rick?
So my day job is I have a search firm called Stride Search. We do engaged search. So we're a retained search model. The only difference is we actually bring into the whole structure. When we work with a client, we bring in an interview process that we basically install into the company when we work with them.
Gotcha. And how long have you been doing your show?
So the show, we just did our 70th episode yesterday. We're weekly, and we're a live stream radio show on OC Talk Radio, which is the local Orange County business radio station. And then we turn it into a podcast every Thursday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun.
Definitely. Yeah. Podcasting is a lot of fun. Larry, got Larry Cummings here. Larry, tell us where you are, what your show is, and what you do.
This is Larry Cummings, and I live in the middle of the deal, USA. Actually,
looks like you're going to a show there, huh? Or a mini show?
Yeah, actually, Alabama. So we begin our show, and we take shows seriously. And so the first question is, Larry, what show did you go to this week? And actually, I keep all of these. So on the wall this is about a small portion of the ones I've kept over the years. So actually, it's beginning to hurt my neck. We are different in our approach. Ours is HR Tech Collaboration News. So our approach is for the HR vendor community. And if you hear hammering in the background, we had a hailstorm some time ago, so our roof is actually being replaced. And so we're north of the hurricane,
Gotcha.
but a lot of damage in our state. And actually all of my relatives, about 8 different set of them, are still without power, without cell connection in the Panama City, Tallahassee area. So a lot of disruption going on south of here. But our show is unique in that we have 3 parts to it. It is build, buy, or partner. And so our emphasis, to the point about the point solution providers, is we believe that the point solution providers have to be good at what they do. And if we can actually create some connectivity between them, and my day job is I'm the joint provider. I create that synergy. I'm that consultant that is the trade show concierge. I bring people together, and I become that solution at trade shows, that concierge that is the harmony for the vendor community. So on our shows, we basically talk about the partnerships that have occurred and the opportunity for collaboration, a collaborative opportunity for point solutions to actually work with each other.
Nice. You guys have a or something you learned on your podcast that you thought was interesting? Maybe from a recent show?
Oh, I mean, the elements of we always listen to other groups for ideas that we can grow on. We all live from each other. I mean, the big part of this industry is what I call co-opetition. We attempt to learn from each other, and I think the element of that is a big thing that we did with our sessions that we've done 12 of them now at different shows around the world. And the collaboration zones, we invite industry influencers, we invite podcasters to these shows. And we actually had more integration experts and roundtable discussions than SAP Sapphire did at their event with 750 sessions. We had more events on integrations in HR than they did in their Orlando event. Nice. So that meant we had all but one of the vendors in that community. Nice. So why would you have all your competitors together trying to sell to each other, except it worked? From that, literally, it created a collaboration where they were actually working together to create some products together.
Cool.
Bingo.
Yeah.
As if we might need something to increase the likelihood of data flow between vendors.
Let me get John back in the conversation here. John, what's top of mind for you as an HR manager? Tell me a little more about what you guys are recruiting for and what kind of challenges you're facing today.
Again, we're in the utility construction industry, and skilled labor is becoming harder and harder to find. Of course, everything is getting harder to find. So,
yeah.
It's an interesting focus. We're a family-owned business. we tend to be very conservative in a lot of ways. And so it's great being in the space that I'm in when people hear I do podcasting, that kind of blows a lot of them away because it's just a foreign concept to some folks. But yeah, I think we have challenges like everyone else. And it's what's been interesting is kind of learning from my peers, listening to a lot of the shows and some of the folks that are on the show today, figuring out how do I apply some of those things in that space that it's people think of when you're hiring primarily ditch diggers, right? We talk about high tech in a lot of places. How do I apply some of those tricks, tips, secrets to what we're doing?
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Rick, you got a tip for wannabe podcasters?
Oh gosh. I got lots of tips. I've done everything wrong, starting up to, how I posted it and how I, approached it in the very beginning. Get some coaching. That's always a good thing. I did hire a coach, and that's helped a ton.
Nice. And curious, guys, what kind of mics do you use? Where do you host your stuff? Just throw some names out there.
Oh, for me?
And I've got the Best Buy off-brand version of a Yeti mic.
I'm fortunate enough to have a radio station that's a fully functional radio station that I tape out of, and I'm able to get video as well. But
cool.
Yeah.
Do you have to pay for that airtime?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice. The only thing that does suck about it is that I do get locked out on time. If I'm onto something, I got to cut it off at 25 after. So that makes it tough.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I just use this mic and a USB mic, and I record over a Mac using Core Recorder software off of Skype. So that's really it. I may end up going that route. The only thing is, our guests I bring a lot of live guests in, and so they tend to really enjoy the fact that you have that face-to-face interaction. So that's been a big plus for our business as well, because I get to get in front of the decision makers and have them on the show. So it's been a good marketing tool. Nice. Cool. And what do you guys listen to? Any podcasts you want to mention at all out there? Feel free to.
Big fan of Hostile Work Environment.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys are awesome. They've been on our show. Impact Makers, Jennifer McClure is great. Let's Fix Work. Joey Price is coming up, but his show's awesome too.
Yep. Yeah, I invited Jen today, but she's traveling, I think. She mentioned.
We're part of the Total Picture, and there are other channels on it. So our partner there is Peter Clayton, and he produces the Jessica Miller. So we listen to that, and we trade some ideas back and forth. And because of that, we actually produce some other interviews. So it gives us some other outlets and some other opportunities to produce some segments. But one of my favorites is actually Chad and Cheese. Just get so many great ideas, and they've been so supportive of us. And then HR Tech Weekly becomes a great understanding, a different direction. And although there's similarities in what we do,
who hosts that show?
We think it's completely different. So,
yeah. Who hosts that show?
Stacey Harris and John Sumner.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. HR Tech Weekly. Yep. Johnson.
And I only listen to podcasts that are hosted by bald men. So Chad and Cheese, James Ellis, myself, Joe Rogan.
Love me, Rick.
That's where I roll.
All right, guys. We appreciate the time today. Any last words of any last comments before I close you out?
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you for organizing this, Chris.
Superb.
No Share love. Okay, guys. Take care.
Perfect.
All right, that's group 3. We're gonna work on group 4 here. Let me get these guys organized here. All right, we're gonna bring on Joey Price. He's up next. Joey, gonna invite you here on screen. We got Stefan Vincent and Jeff Hyman too. Let me find them on the list. There's Jeff and Stefan. All right, so far so good. Joey.
Hey, Chris, what's going on?
What's happening?
Nothing much. Just another day. How you doing?
Another day, right? Are you in New York?
No, man. I'm in Columbia today, actually. Columbia, Maryland.
Cool. Oh, okay.
I usually spend most of my time.
Gotcha. All right. There's Jeff and there's Stefan.
Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Is it Stephen or Stefan? I forget.
Stefan.
I'm the French guy, not from Dublin, but the French guy.
All right, so we got Jeff, Stefan, and Joey here. So Joey, we'll start with you. So tell us who you are, what your show is, and what you do.
Hey, yeah. Well, first, Chris, I just want to say thanks for having me on, man. I think it's a really great idea to get all the podcasters together, chatting.
Yeah.
My podcast is the Business, Life, and Coffee podcast. So I tried to pick 3 of my favorite things, and it also sounded better than business, life, and pizza. So went with the coffee there. It's a way for me to talk with business leaders in small micro episodes of about 12 to 15 minutes, about the time it would take to enjoy a cup of coffee. And we talk about not only professional development, personal development, but their stories and what makes them successful. So you might say, well, is it really an HR podcast? It is in a way, because it's a professional development that I like to tailor for anyone who's looking to take that next step as a business leader, or even as a entrepreneur striking it out in the world of HR consulting. So that's my podcast. You can check it out wherever podcasts are consumed, and would love a 5-star review from anyone listening and checking it out today.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. We all want 5-star reviews. So feel free, if you're a podcast listener, to go and review us all, please. So definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm up to about 2,000 downloads. I've been doing my show for like 2 years now. So let's compare stats. What do you guys got? What do you host yours, Joey?
I've hosted on Podbean. They've been great. Okay. Their analytics have been better recently. I think they made a change. But I like Podbean. That's where I'm at. And as far as downloads, 43,595 for 164 episodes.
Nice, very nice.
I'm on Libsyn, which I've been pretty happy with. The analytics need some work. They kind of overhauled it last year, so they lost some data, which was kind of frustrating.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just switched to Libsyn probably like 3 months ago. I was hosting everything on SoundCloud for a while, but Libsyn has the opportunity we can push out to YouTube, for example, right. And SoundCloud at the same time. So I figured that was easier.
Yeah.
But all right, so Jeff, we got Jeff Hyman here. Tell us who you are, what your show is, and what you do.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it. So I'm Jeff Hyman, and I have a podcast called the Strong Suit Podcast. Started about 3 years ago. We just had our 250th episode on Tuesday of this week. So it's every Tuesday, Thursday, short form, 20 minutes, just enough for a commute or a treadmill. And it's really recruiting for non-recruiters. So it's interview format. Each episode, I interview one person who knows either something about recruiting or leadership or retention. And I've learned a ton. So it's really it's a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, feel free to put a link there in the chat box.
We'll do.
Stefan, let's get you here. Stefan Vincent, tell us who you are, what your podcast is.
Sure. My podcast is the EX podcast. So we don't talk about ex-wives or ex-husbands, but the employee experience.
X-Pod.
And the goal is really to bring a different perspective to the HR workplace, company culture conversation, mostly which is my background, from a marketing and brands customer experience perspective. I'm trying to apply some of the things that companies do very well on the customer side to the employee side. And so it's all, I call it an EX social of HR disruption. That's really what it is.
Yeah. And you started it. Why'd you start it? Because you also do some events as well. Is that why you wanted to do that? Was to have kind of an audio version for the events?
Yeah, the podcast was pretty much an extension of a series of events that I do as well, called the EX Summit. We've been to already a few cities, studied in Indianapolis, went to Columbus, Ohio, Cincinnati, Minneapolis, Philadelphia, going to Phoenix in a couple of weeks from now. So the podcast was just a natural extension of the summits.
Nice. Awesome. So what have you guys learned podcasting all these years? I mean, has the podcast led to business deals or just personal growth for yourselves? Tell me more about the kind of the value you get out of podcasting.
I would say
anybody can chime in with this.
Yeah, I would say I don't know that I've had any deals as a direct result of it, but it definitely improves perception and credibility. So as I talk to a prospective client. I run a retained search firm, and I talk to people that are potential clients and they've listened to the show. It certainly enhances the differentiation.
Yeah, I'd say podcasting helps build my network. Absolutely, without a doubt, because I have a weekly episode or a weekly podcast. And so I'm talking to someone new every week. And whether they're in marketing or an entrepreneur or personal finance, it's just great for me to get more people in my Rolodex, even though we don't use them anymore. But just to say, hey, oh, you need something? I got a guy, or I have a lady that you should talk to.
Yeah, I love personally connecting with people and listening and hearing this. Yeah.
Serve as matchmaker.
We lost you for a second there, Joey. Sorry.
Sorry, Joe.
Oh, okay. I said that podcasting helps me grow my network and water my network as well. When I can help my people connect with different service providers or life skills folks. So it's been super helpful on the networking side.
Nice. You were saying, Stefan?
Yeah, I love connecting with people and listening to their stories and learning from them. Just awesome. I mean, you learn so much just by having your guests speaking, sharing the insights and what they do well, what they don't do well. It's just pretty easy conversation, pretty easy way to learn stuff.
Yeah. And what's your day job, Stefan?
I lead a marketing team actually for technology and digital consulting agency. So I don't do any of this stuff myself. Actually, I support our recruiting team, but my job is really focused on marketing.
Yeah. So how did a marketer get into the employee experience?
Bad experiences, like most of us.
If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself, right?
What do you guys think about some of the news recently? Let's see here. LinkedIn has a new ATS. I asked the other guys about that. They also bought Glint, which is an employee engagement tool. You've got things like the ZipRecruiter just got, $100-something million in more funding. So more podcast ads for them. You guys want to chime in on any of those news items?
I've talked to a lot of people that use Indeed and ZipRecruiter, and they definitely find that they get a ton of flow. I have a tough time finding a lot of people who are thrilled with the quality of the flow.
It's just because there isn't more quality. Everybody's working.
Yeah.
So it's like they're...
And there's certainly great people that are not working too, but it's, to your point, it's a smaller number. But I think the book remains to be written on the long term of those business models.
Yeah. By the way, ZipRecruiter, if you're listening, John says you should be giving us all sponsorships now. So imagine they sponsor every podcast in HR. That would be probably bad.
It's funny. I listen to Serial, and ZipRecruiter weaves its way into all of these ads or all of these shows. It's just funny how they can tie a show like Serial with recruiting. So whoever is working in their marketing department, if you ever leave ZipRecruiter, I know a place you can go because they make it stick anywhere, any kind of podcast. But specifically for the LinkedIn and the ATS, I think it's more of a play of a lot of the big firms are trying to capture market share, not just of dollars, but even your attention as well. And so, with LinkedIn being a Microsoft tool, if they know that, hey, we can capture your time, attention, and dollars through this tool, it opens us up to plug and play with something else. So I think it's a brilliant strategy. Who knows how it will work, or the beauty is in the execution, but we'll just see how it goes. Yeah. I think that's the play, though.
I think we're witnessing a large-scale war here between LinkedIn and ZipRecruiter, Indeed, and Google and stuff like that. Just everybody's arming themselves for a new race to a new race to town, I guess.
Some things never change.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I agree with you.
All right,
when you use the Indeeds and LinkedIn and ZipRecruiters and so forth, you get a lot of volume. You don't get so much quality. Yeah. And it's how much you want to use from push versus pull. When what it's marketing, it's recruiting, it's exactly the same thing. It's how much you want to push out versus how much you want to pull in. And it's more and more about inbound. So how much are you going to develop your employer brand so that actually people want to come to you versus trying you to reach out to those people?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, let's end the show with just maybe each of you giving one tip about how to do a good podcast. And we'll do a little round robin here and we'll close things out. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Maybe it's just me, but I think my guests have a lot more to teach than I do. So I don't do a whole lot of talking. I try to frame, we spend a little bit of time really nailing the topic in the first 10 minutes before we start, and then let her rip. And I just ask a lot of questions like if we were together in person. And, I think the guests find that incredibly, or the audience finds that incredibly useful versus hearing what I have to say every week, so that's been, I think, the key to our doing it for 3 years.
Yeah, my tip would be just prep, right? So I definitely, come up with a script I go by. I don't actually read it word for word, but something I can, look at as I go along. And I give the guests, the topics I'm going to talk about beforehand so they can prep a little bit. It's definitely important to have your guests prepped as far as, what you want them to talk about and guide that conversation. So.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Usually I do maybe a 10, 15-minute prep call before the podcast. It can be weeks before actually we tape the episode. Yep. I send them what I call the discussion guide, maybe with 4 or 5 main topics. It's not a laundry list of questions because I really want to have the conversation fluid. But again, I agree with Jeff. It's more about just letting your guests do the talk.
My piece of advice is focusing on the listener, and remember that podcasting is a very intimate medium of communication. So you're really speaking to an audience of one as opposed to being a keynote on a stage. So I try to be intentional about not saying, hey guys, thanks for joining the show, but hello, thank you for listening to the show. So the intimacy of the podcast experience is different than a platform.
Cool. All right, well, we'll put your links in the chat box there, so you are archived for the archives there. And I guess we'll end this. It's 4:51, so pretty much right on time. Guys, appreciate you coming on today, and thanks for sharing your stories. And that's it, guys. So for listeners who are regulars of RegTech Live, next week I'll be talking to Olio, the OT from Olio, around how to make your high-volume, higher events less stressful. So that's next week's webinar. And guys, again, Stefan, Jeff, Joey, everybody on the call, Audra, Chad, all those guys, thanks for coming on. And we'll see you guys next time. Maybe we'll do another one.
It was great. Thanks for having us, Chris.
See ya.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks.